Hey, what's going on, you bearded bastards? Thanks for stopping back in for another video. Today I had a really interesting thought, and thank you to some of the members of Axiom kind of helping me work through the math on this a little bit. I think I had kind of really overcomplicated it in my mind going into it, and they kind of dumbed it down for me and made it a little bit more simple. So thank you guys over there for helping out. But I wanted to talk about the impact of all of the player agency that is going to exist within Ashes of Creation, and kind of with the main goal of really trying to put it into perspective for everybody. I think a lot of people look at a game like Ashes of Creation, see all the different player choices that exist within it, and don't really fully understand the impact of what it is Intrepid is trying to make. Um, and especially compared to other modern MMOs like WoW, for example, right? Which we'll go into some of their numbers a little bit here as well. So let's just kind of go through this thought experiment and kind of look at the numbers here a little bit. And keep in mind, these numbers are very basic. Go ahead and assume that the number is way higher than this. This is kind of just taking the basic things that we already know about the game and working with that. So right off the bat, you load up the game, you log in. The first option that you have available to you is races. Well, with races, we're looking at Kalar, Velun, Dunir, Nakua, Renkai, Vec, Empyrean, Pyrai, and Tolnar. So right off the bat, player has 9 options. We're not going to go into the character customization side of it. Obviously, you have a lot of options within that, but none of that really affects your gameplay. So from that side, you have 9 options that can be impactful on your gameplay because we have the race augment system available to us as well. Now we don't know the details on the race augment system, but we know that it exists. So from there, then you're going to be looking at picking your class primary archetype. Well, from there you have 8 options. We have the fighter, tank, rogue, ranger, mage, summoner, cleric, and bard. Now, I mean, if you go bard, that's your problem. I mean, for me, there's really only 7 options, but teach their own. Teach their own. So you have 8 options there. Then we're going to take that and we need to figure out what our combined class is. And the way that we figure that out is we have to pick our secondary archetype, which is the same list of classes, but you just add it on to your primary archetype, and that gives you your complete class, Necromancer, for example. So we pick our secondary archetype, which again is from the list of fighter, tank, rogue, ranger, mage, summoner, cleric, and bard. Then, from those 8, from those combinations of your class to create your class, we still have each archetype providing 4 augments. So doing some quick math on that, you have the 9 races, the 8 primary, the 8 secondary, and then the 4 augments. That number comes out to 2,304. That baseline number right there is kind of what you're presented with. Roughly, we don't know exactly when secondary augment's going to come into play. We can kind of assume somewhere around 15, 20, level 15, level 20, maybe level 25 if they push it a little bit later. But that's just theory crafting at this point. But just from a character creation standpoint and kind of the basic customization of gameplay that you have with your character, you already have 2,304 options. Now, let me go ahead and we're going to pause on the Ashes side real quick and we're going to look at WoW real fast because I want to put that number into perspective for you. From the WoW side, now we have to approach the WoW side a little bit differently because classes are limited on what races they can play, and so the math isn't as easily done. But went ahead and did it, and basically what that comes out to is 611 different ways of playing, kind of from the get go. This includes the different roles. This includes the different specs. So, for example, if you go something like a mage, like they don't get to heal or tank, but I did take into account the 3 different mage playstyles: Fire, Frost, Arcane. So that number wasn't high enough for me. I kind of felt bad for WoW, so I went ahead and threw in the metric of kind of focus gameplay. Are you focused on PvE? Are you focused on PvP? Or are you focused on RP? So we're going to take that 611 number, multiply it by 3. That gets us to 1,833. So just comparing that, 1,833 is kind of the max you're looking at when it comes to player agency within World of Warcraft. And I'm sure it varies a little bit game to game, but that's probably a fair statement for most modern day MMORPGs. Like, your theme park on rail MMORPGs give very little impactful player agency. And we're just kind of taking the basics of WoW. I know that they have like some different systems in there that are late game, but don't worry, Ashes is going to blow all of that out of the water as well. Because remember, we haven't accounted for Ashes late game stuff yet either. So getting back over to the Ashes side, remember, WoW 1,833 at a baseline, Ashes at a baseline 2,304. Now something else that exists within WoW that doesn't exist within WoW, but does exist within Ashes of Creation, is being able to choose what type of armor you wear. Depending on what class you are in WoW, determines what armor you wear. Like, Rangers have to use, or Hunters have to use mail armor. Warriors have to use plate armor. So you have zero agency there, zero customization. But we know that in Ashes of Creation, you're going to have a gear buff. So that's going to be like a light armor buff, a medium armor buff, and a heavy armor buff. Now, we don't know how they're going to go about that. We don't know if it's going to be like 50% of your gear has to be heavy, 75%, all of it. We don't know how they're going to do that, but we know that there's going to be a buff that exists. So taking that into account, we take that 2,304 number, multiply it by three different armor type options. That gets us to 6,912. Taking that 6,912, the next thing we want to take into account are weapons. Now, this is more of a flavor thing, but the weapon that you wield as a player really lends to the identity of your character. So I wanted to make sure to add it here because I think especially with it being an option within the game, I felt as though it needs to be added because also another thing in WoW that you really don't have any control over. I mean, a hunter can do a bow, a crossbow, or a gun, but they all act functionally the same way. So there's really not player agency there. And then especially once you get into stats on gear and whatnot, you're usually running that gun that drops from the end boss, or you're running that bow that drops from the end boss because of the stats that are on it. So you basically have no player agency with that, even within the variants of your individual class. So we know right now that there are 11 melee weapons, and then we have 6 ranged weapons. Now, from what we understand, we're going to have melee weapon slots, which will kind of act as our main hand offhand slot, and then we will have a ranged weapon slot. So we don't know if there's going to be a whole separate list of like ranged secondary weapons, or if it's just going to pull from the current pool of ranged weapons. So we kind of have to make an assumption here that it's just 11 melee weapons and just 6 ranged weapons. So keeping those numbers in mind, or keeping that in mind, the numbers then get adjusted to, so we have that 6,912, then multiply that by 11, and it gets us to 76,032. We then multiply that by 6 for the ranged, and that gets us to 456,192. Listen, I don't know how many different points within like in-game World of Warcraft there are for player agency, but I guarantee you they don't hit that high already. Now we have 3 more things we kind of want to take into account here, or two main things we want to take into account here. The next one is the religious augment system. If you notice, I'm trying to stick to kind of the augments and particularly the ones that we know about. So from the religious side, we technically have 10, but there's only 7 that are worshipable. Now, I wanted to take that a step further because Stephen has confirmed that you can technically be an atheist within Ashes of Creation. So by not opting into the augment system, I'm basically defining that as a player choice to not participate in that and obtain those augments. So we're going to go ahead and say 8. Now, if you don't like that, sorry, the number is only adjusted a little bit, whether you multiply by 7 or you multiply by 8. So from there, we take that 456,192 times the 8 religions, the 7 and including the atheists. That gets us to 3,649,536. Like, this number is already absolutely ridiculous. And we have one more thing that we're going to go over with it. Social organizations and their augments. So with what we know of social organizations at the moment, we know that there are 3. The Scholars Academy, the Thieves Guild, and the Traders Company. So we're going to take that 3,649,536, multiply it by 3. That gets us to 10,948,608. Feel like you don't have enough choices within that? Well, hold on. Each of those different organizations can provide up to 4 augments. Now, a little note that I want to add here about it being 4 augments as opposed to 3. Per the wiki, 3 or 4 augments depending on if it's a patron of the node. So we're going to go ahead and go with 4 because we kind of want to look at the higher end side of it, right? So we're going to take that 10,948,608, multiply it by the 4 possible augments, and that is going to give us 43,794,432 possible ways of playing Ashes of Creation, just with those things in mind. Now, I went ahead and listed out all of the different artisan stuff, which there's 6 gathering classes, 2 processing classes, and 11 crafting classes. But we know that that list is not complete, and I didn't want to kind of misconstrue the number higher than what we currently know as a fact. So I went ahead and left that out, but just know that even that 43 million number is a low ball once we actually get all of the other ways added into the game. And also keep in mind that I added the playstyle in for WoW to make the number a little bit more even, and I didn't do that for Ashes. I'm really hoping that this helps put it into perspective as to how crazy Intrepid is going with what they're trying to create with Ashes of Creation. And also probably lends to why the game has been in development for so long. Now, I'm not trying to give them an excuse, and I think that a lot of this stuff they have been working on over the years, even, back when the BR we don't talk about came about. So I think a lot of this stuff has been kind of theory crafted on their end and even worked on in the back end that we haven't seen. So I think that I'm not super concerned about this development taking too much longer. Like I don't think we're looking at like 5 years, right? My guesstimate is somewhere between 2 to 3 years, and that's when we're going to have a launch. So, but I mean, this giant 43 million number that we're left with, it raises one massive concern in my mind, and that comes down to balancing. I mean, WoW has had a horrible time with balancing. I mean, Blizzard, basically in all of their games, has had a horrible time with balancing. So, Intrepid, what are we going to do with balancing here? And I kind of pose the question to you guys as well in the Bearded Bastards community, because this is a big concern of mine. And I think that it's something that, even though they're looking at it from a rock, paper, scissors standpoint rather than a 1v1 standpoint, and then also on the group side as opposed to the 1v1 standpoint, I think it will give them a little bit more wiggle room. But we're looking at 43 million and we haven't even taken into account everything. So just kind of my thoughts on that. Wanted to kind of, get this video out to you guys, kind of put it in perspective with everything. And, yeah, I mean, I appreciate you guys coming in, hanging out. Make sure you like and subscribe, join the Bearded Bastard community, and let me know down below. Do you have the same concern for all of the player agency in Ashes of Creation, or do you think Intrepid's got it? I appreciate y'all coming in. Peace.